Hotline is presented by Sullivan Super Service, Pittsburgh trusted plumbing and HVAC provider for over 50 years. And joining us on that hotline is our good buddy from the Post-Gazette, Steelers insider Ray Fittipaldo. Good morning to you, Ray. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you?
I think we're good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, real good.
Callis is full-time now. How you feel about that, Ray?
Oh, that's awesome. Nicky didn't tell me. I was on hold with him for a couple minutes. He didn't spill the beans, so congrats, Nick.
I'm not one to brag, but thank you for your kind
We're bragging for you. We're very excited around here. Are we also excited about Denzel Mims being released? I mean, I'm not happy for the guy, but does this mean, Ray, is something upcoming here? I mean, you understand when they do these moves. Was it odd to release a player on June 18th?
A little bit odd because most of the time, if you're with the team, throughout OTAs and mini camp, they'll keep you at least for the early stages of training camp until somebody else becomes available. So, from that aspect, I think it's a little bit out of the ordinary. But does this necessarily mean that a Brandon Aiyuk trade is coming in the next couple of days? I don't think so. I think for the Steelers, I think they're interested, but I think they're interested at their price. And I think what Omar Khan is going to do is he's going to wait until it gets really uncomfortable for John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. And if you've noticed, Aiyuk is kind of starting to make it uncomfortable for the 49ers. So, I think, deadlines always spur these deals, right? It's as the season gets closer, I think the 49ers might have a little bit more urgency in moving him. But, I still think, listen, guys, it's been out there since March. We've known this has been a thing since March. And I think if it's going to happen, probably not going to happen in June. I think it'll happen probably closer to training camp or the start of the season.
Ray, the AFC North is going to be shown on Hard Knocks in December. In-season Hard Knocks. What's your take of Mike Tomlin, the Pittsburgh Steelers, being on Hard Knocks? I know that Tomlin probably wasn't a fan of Hard Knocks ever and probably tried to run away from ever being a part of that. I don't even think he could. I think he had to have a losing season or something. I forget the rule before. But they're going to be on Hard Knocks with the Cleveland Browns, the Ravens, and the Bengals. How do you think that that's going to go?
I guarantee you everyone in that building hates it. You're right. There are like all kinds of stipulations, right? They're like you had to have like 2 losing seasons in a row or 2 non-playoff seasons in a row. The Steelers never got to that point. So they were always, they didn't have to do it. But, it's like anything, guys. If the NFL is going to make money off this and the teams are going to benefit, the Steelers will hold their nose and they'll do it. So I'm sure there's a financial aspect to this. I'm sure it means more money in the pockets of the owners. That's the only reason the Steelers are doing this. Mike Tomlin, I don't know if he's been on record, but I just know from covering this team for as long as I have that it's been a very distasteful thing for them to consider. And now that it's here, I'm sure they're just going to hold their nose and do it because they're asked.
Yeah, I saw a video actually on Twitter yesterday, guys, where Tomlin was asked about Hard Knocks. And he said, would you do it if they asked you? And Mike Tomlin said, ask? And then all you guys, you laughed pretty heartily. So I think you're spot on. I don't think he wants to do this. I do, however, think he's going to wind up being like the star. Mike Tomlin, people are going to be mad. He hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years. We know all the reason why Steelers fans don't like Mike T, but I think his personality is really going to come through on this thing if he lets it, and I think people will wind up liking him. The fan hotline is presented by Sullivan Super Service, providing trusted plumbing and HVAC service for over 50 years. Ray, did any of the non-George Pickens receivers take a step forward in camp? Did any of them hold their head higher than the other guys?
Not really. I mean, it's football in shorts, and I really hesitate to draw a lot of conclusions from it. I think we'll get a better idea of, what these guys can do in training camp. The one thing I did take away from it, and it's not so much play on the field, although Calvin Austin did have a nice spring. But when people were asked about who the leader was in that receivers room, people said Calvin Austin. And I just thought that was a interesting thing with, George Pickens being the top guy in that room. Production-wise, Calvin Austin's a guy who was injured his rookie year, played sparingly in his second year, and here he's being viewed, as a leader in that room. So I just thought that was interesting. Maybe he's taking a step forward. He is older. He came into the league, I think, at 23, 24. So he is a mature guy. So maybe that's something to keep an eye on. I think he could be a good player. I don't know if he's number 2, number 3 material, but I do think he could be a nice receiver, a depth guy for this offense here this season.
Ray, sticking with leadership, during OTAs and during minicamp, was it evident that Russell Wilson separated himself from the pack of being the leader of the team, the leader of the offense? Could you see his leadership qualities kind of bleed out throughout the practices last week?
Yeah, and I thought Justin Fields was fine too, but Russell is a vet and he's done this before. He's led really good teams in this league, and I think he's going to do the same for the Steelers. I've said this before, guys. Since he's gotten to town, he has done everything right. Now we'll see if that continues throughout training camp and the early portions of the season, but just the way he handles himself, the way he commands a huddle, the way he commands interviews when he does it. He's very purposeful in how he speaks. So, yeah, I think Russell, I don't know that he had to separate himself in that regard, but, yeah, I think he's the undisputed leader of this offense right now. And I think that's the way it should be. It's fine to have veteran offensive linemen be leaders, but they're more quiet guys. You need that quarterback who's been there and done it before. And, the Steelers finally have that guy after searching for a couple of years.
Ray Fittipaldo with us here on the Fan Morning Show, and the Fan Morning Show is brought to you by Guardian Protection. Just to go back to Brandon Aiyuk for a second here. So you're saying the Steelers would be interested, but at their price. What do you think San Francisco could realistically hope to get for Brandon Aiyuk, and where do you think the line in the sand would be for the Steelers here?
Yeah, I mean, you throughout the process, going back to March, you heard they wanted a 1 and then maybe a third or something like that. I don't think the Steelers are going to pay that price. So, for the Steelers, I don't know what San Francisco wants, but for the Steelers, do you do it for like a second in 2025? That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. And the other layer to this, guys, is if you acquire him, you got to pay him, and you got to figure that into your salary cap. And I wrote about this last week or a couple weeks ago. Justin Jefferson's contract really complicated things. And I'm not saying the Steelers should have made a deal back at the draft, but the price just went up because of the Justin Jefferson contract. So that's another layer to this as well that you have to consider. So I don't know what the compensation would be from San Fran's perspective, but I do know the contract went up. He's not going to get Justin Jefferson money, but all receivers now are going to benefit from that contract.
Last thing here for you, Ray, real quick, before we let you go. When Alex Highsmith's contract was restructured, do you think it was because they had an eye on San Francisco, or was it just anything to be just open to anything, I guess?
Yeah, I would say a receiver. I don't know if it was specifically Aiyuk, but I will tell you guys, I was told Aiyuk was a possibility as far back as March. I can't remember if it was before or after Deontay was traded, probably after Deontay. This has been a thing for a while, and I think you were right. They made that deal with Highsmith to clear up the space. They didn't pull the trigger. We'll see if it happens in a month or two.
Raymond, thank you very much for the time, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Ray.
Ray Fittipaldo of the Post-Gazette.